Everybody awake? Yes, okay. Just checking. Yeah, that's okay. All right, as the General Assembly holds a special session against corruption today, the Secretary General delivered a video message at the launch of the anti-corruption Globe e-network that took place in Vienna in Austria. He told the participants this morning that corruption is not only immoral, but it is a serious crime. He said that corruption betrays people and democracies. Turning the tide against corruption is essential if we are to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, promote peace, and protect human rights, he asserted. The Secretary General welcomed the creation of the Global Operational Network of Anti-Corruption Law Enforcement Authorities, or Globe e-network, as a step in the right direction. He added that the network will enable law enforcement authorities to navigate the legal processes through informal cooperation across borders, helping to build trust and bring those guilty of corruption to justice. The network is a secure platform for information exchange and informal cooperation that will empower countries to connect anti-corruption authorities with the counterparts across the globe for faster, more efficient prosecution of corruption network and practices. It is established under this network is established under the auspices of the UN Office of Drugs and Crime, and the network is open to anti-corruption law enforcement authorities in all UN member states and states parties to the UN Convention Against Corruption. Just to note that yesterday, the hurricane season in Latin America and the Caribbean officially began, and it is expected to be an intense one. The Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in the Latin America and Caribbean region is working with resident coordinators in the Caribbean and Central America and with the wider humanitarian community to prepare for this season. Technical work is being carried out in the field in planning, in information management, humanitarian financing, as well as civil-military coordination, areas that are the most crucial during an emergency. A focus of the preparedness work will also include identifying and working alongside local organizations. Given the ongoing pandemic and the surge in numbers across the region, preparations also include remote support. To give you some context, the U.S. National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration projects that 13 to 20 named storms in the Atlantic, including 3 to 5 major hurricanes. Between 2016 and last year, some 27 million people were impacted by storms and floods and flood-induced disasters in the region. This is more than six-fold increase compared to the previous 5 years, 2011 to 2015. The Special Tribunal for Lebanon's Trial 2 chamber issued an order today canceling the commencement of the trial in the Ayash case, which was to start on June 16th. It also suspended all decisions on filings presently before it and any future filings until further notice. The order was in response to the registrar's filing on June 1st, which notified the chamber of the severe financial situation currently faced by the tribunal. The imminent exhaustion of funds will impact the tribunal's ability to finance the continuation of judicial proceedings and completion of its mandate unless further contributions are forthcoming this month. Also on Lebanon, I'd like to add that Joanna Ronenka, the UN Special Coordinator for Lebanon, today held her first round of meetings with Lebanese officials. She met today with President Michel Aoun, the Speaker of the Parliament, Nabi Berri, and the caretaker Prime Minister Hassan Diab, as well as acting caretaker Foreign Minister Zeina Akar. And at 3 p.m. today, the Security Council will receive a briefing on the situation concerning the Safer tanker, in which we spoke about yesterday. They will hear from Inger Anderson, the Executive Director of the UN Environment Programme, and Rina Gilani from the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. As we told you yesterday, we have been explaining to Ansar Allah authorities that the Safer tanker is a dangerous site, that we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with before undertaking any major work. As we've told you, we've had some very intense discussions with them over the last 10 days, trying to bridge the gaps. And turning to South Sudan, where Nicholas Haysom, as you know, recently took his post as head of the peacekeeping mission there. Mr. Haysom said today in a press conference that his clear focus is to prevent to prevent sub-national violence that is still flaring up in particular places across the world's youngest country. He will also focus on the UN peacekeeping mission's ongoing support for the drafting of permanent constitution, which is expected to pave the way for elections. Regarding the violence, Mr. Haysom referred to the UN mission, together with the African Union, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, and other partners that have jointly expressed concern over the events and the violence in the Pibor region. A joint delegation of these organizations visited Pibor earlier this week, and they are worried that this year's violence could turn into something similar to what happened earlier last year when thousands of fighters from the Dinka, Nuer, and Murle communities attacked villages, killing and wounding hundreds of civilians. The delegations acknowledged the gradual improvement in the situation, but called on the transitional government of South Sudan, together with the community leaders in Greater Pibor and Jonglei, to take steps to silence the guns, address root causes of the conflict, and protect civilians. Moving on to Somalia, which continues to be battered by a double climate disaster against the backdrop of decades of conflict and insecurity. On the 25th of April, the federal government of Somalia, in consultation with the UN, declared a drought with moderate to severe drought conditions impacted 80% of the country. Seasonal rains then started in parts of the country in late April and early May, triggering flash flooding that impacted 400,000 people, for whom 101,300 people were displaced. The rains only struck some parts of the country and were largely below average, subsiding in mid-May, but was such that the critical crop planting season has been significantly impacted. Approximately 2.8 million people across Somalia are expected to face crisis or worse outcomes between April and September 2021, reflecting the deteriorating food security and situation across the country. Humanitarian organizations continue to respond in locations with the highest needs. The 2021 humanitarian appeal for Somalia requires $1.09 billion to assist 4 million people, but it is currently only 20% funded. And speaking of funding issues on humanitarian programs, our friends at the World Food Program announced today that 21,000 Syrian refugees in Jordan will no longer receive their monthly food assistance as of July because of a shortage of funds. Recent contributions from donors have averted wide-scale cuts that could affect a larger number of people, but resources still fall short of meeting the needs of all vulnerable refugees in Jordan. WFP needs $58 million to continue with food assistance until the end of the year for 500,000 refugees it supports in Jordan. A quick update from Mongolia, where the UN team on the ground is supporting the government in its COVID-19 vaccination efforts, prioritizing frontline workers and high-risk people. To date, Mongolia has received nearly 185,000 AstraZeneca and Pfizer doses from COVAX, with the UN's support in the areas of logistics and preparations. The COVAX doses are part of the 4.7 million doses that Mongolia has secured to vaccinate everyone over the age of 18. UNICEF is helping build a new central storage facility for vaccines and is also procuring cold chain equipment. The World Health Organization has helped train health workers on preventing infections. It has provided intensive care for COVID-19 patients and has also helped plan vaccination campaigns at national and local levels. I have the Global Food Price Index for the month of May to share with you. According to our colleagues in Rome at the FAO, the global food prices rose in May at their fastest monthly rate in more than a decade, even as world cereal production is on course to reach new record high. The FAO Food Price Index in May was 4.8% higher than in April and 39.7% higher than in May of 2020. A surge in international prices of vegetable oil, sugar, and cereals led the increase in the index to its highest value since September of 2011. And today is a big day. You know what day today is? It's World Bicycle Day. For those of us who like to get on the saddle. In his message for the day, the Secretary General highlighted that bikes are freedom, fun, and good for one's health and good for one's the one and only planet that we have. The Secretary General noted that even before COVID-19 pandemic, cycling was a critical mode of transportation. He pointed out that the crisis has changed transport needs and behavior and prompted many cities to rethink their transport systems, with bicycle playing a vital role in offering an economic and non-polluting alternative to cars. And the Secretary General also stressed that the further embrace of cycling must be accompanied by heightened efforts to improve road safety and integrate the bicycle into sustainable transport planning and design. He called on the world's cyclists, whether out for sport, exercise, or an errand, to keep those wheels turning. And there will be an event, I think, at 1:45 p.m. in the traffic circle with a number of permanent representatives to mark World Bicycle Day. I will start. Edie?
Thank you very much, Steph. President Biden's announced that 75% of unused vaccines from the United States will be given to COVAX. Does the Secretary General have any reaction?
Thank you. And we very much welcome that move. I think it is very important for wealthy countries, for developed countries, to share as much as possible with COVAX. We've been updating you on what we've been doing on COVAX and the distribution, but it is far short of what is needed. So we hope that others will follow suit. Thank you. Celia, and then we'll go to Mr. Barada.
Stéphane, talking about COVAX, why is Africa so behind everybody, every country, when it comes to vaccination?
Lack of funds, lack of funding of COVAX, lack of vaccines. We saw what the U.S. announced today. Others also have given to COVAX. It's lack of global solidarity. And as the Secretary General has noted, that none of us will be safe until all of us are safe, which means that vaccines need to be within the reach of everyone, everywhere. Mr. Barada, welcome.
Thank you, Steph.
Can you can take off your mask so I can hear you.
Sorry for
Thank
that. You. On vaccines, and I wonder whether you have now, since I have asked many times, any math about how many personnel have been reporting vaccination within this building, especially. And I have another technical question, whether the SG is participating in the G7 summit next week or so. So this is, and I have a few questions about Lebanon.
Okay, so let's, we will be announcing the Secretary General's participation in the G7 officially probably later this week. I don't have figures to share with you on vaccination. The staff is encouraged to self-report on vaccination, given, as we've said many times here, given that vaccines are available in the tri-state area to anyone at this point. We would expect a very high number of people to be vaccinated, but I don't have those numbers to share with you.
So is it that you're not at the UN doing this math, or? No,
we have. I just don't have those numbers to share.
Okay. On the special tribunal for Lebanon, I wonder whether you have, or the SG has, any description for this latest episode that this tribunal.
Well, I think I had a pretty lengthy exchange on this in statement yesterday at the briefing. I mean, the Secretary General is very much encouraging member states to contribute. He's worked with the General Assembly, I think, to release $15.1 million for the tribunal. It is very important that the tribunal be allowed to finish its work and given the resources to finish its work to bring justice to the victims in Lebanon.
So the SG recognizes that the tribunal hasn't achieved its mission yet.
The tribunal still has work to do, and it needs to be able to finish that work. Okay.
Just
one, and then I'll come back to you. One more, and then I'll come back.
It's the same subject.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this tribunal specifically was established to end impunity in Lebanon. And I wonder whether you have the impression that impunity has ended in Lebanon or not.
Look, they're separate things. The tribunal has been given a mandate. It needs to finish that mandate for the cases that have been referred to it. On the greater issue of impunity in Lebanon, there's still some challenges, and notably regarding the blast that caused such tremendous damage on a human and property level. Yes.
Thank you, Stéphane. I have one question about Syria and others about Iraq. My first one is about Syria. Is the deputy coordinator for humanitarian affairs. He warned that if the authorization by Security Council for border crossing is not, if it doesn't happen soon, then there will be a humanitarian disaster, as obviously AIDS for millions will be impacted. My question is about alternative plans. Can you tell us about UN's alternative plans to deliver aid?
Alternative plans, you mean?
Plans in case Security Council did not authorize.
I mean, there's only one border, right, between that allows us to reach those people we need to reach in those areas in Syria. I think the Secretary General and a number of other senior UN officials have been very clear on the critical need for that border crossing to remain open. If it is not open, it will have a tremendous humanitarian impact on men, women, and children who rely on humanitarian aid provided by the UN and our partners on a daily basis.
But is there a contingency plan? Is there an alternative
Listen,
plan?
as always, we to paraphrase someone I won't name, but we will work with the cards that we're being dealt, right? The Secretariat does not make the rules. The Secretariat does not issue the mandates. We work under mandates given to us by member states, by the Security Council. I think we've made very clear, publicly and privately, of the need for that border crossing to remain open.
Oh, and my second one is on Iraq. Is something the president of Turkey, Erdogan, said about for United Nations. It's about a refugee camp inside Iraq that Turkey believes has members of PKK in them, and he threatened to attack the refugee camp. And he said, if the United Nations does not clean it up, we will do it. As a UN member.
I haven't seen those particular comments. What I can tell you is that we've always called for all member states to respect the territorial integrity of Iraq.
This is not territorial integrity. I'm talking about the refugee camp.
And of course, I mean,
president of a country.
It goes without saying that refugee camps, humanitarian installations are protected under international law. Lenka.
Thank you very much. I was wondering what is the envoy to Myanmar at the moment doing, and is there any update on her location?
Her location is back in Bern. She's back in Europe, where she's been working from. She continues to remain in touch with all the relevant parties to push the issue forward. Benno.
Thank you. Just to follow up to the vaccinations of UN employees in the building, the employees who are coming in now on a more regular basis, I think sometimes once a week, sometimes more, do they have to be vaccinated? Is that mandatory for the people who come in or not?
At this point, it is not mandatory, but we're looking at a greater reopening. There'll be a letter from the Secretary General soon to staff to increase the number of people in the building, and things should be a little clearer at this point. Okay, let's go to our chat.
Steph, a quick follow-up
Yes,
on
ma'am.
that. When are you expecting that letter?
When the tablet comes down from the mount, I will be told, and we will then share that with you, hopefully soon. Okay, Mr. Kalbasi, Baman.
Thank you. Stéphane, just a couple of questions about Iran. The foreign minister wrote a letter to the Secretary General talking about the fact that apparently the voting rights of Iran has been suspended. I want to get a confirmation that that is the case, when it happened, and what is the procedure that led to, or how long it takes for a country not to pay their dues to finally have their UNGA votes rights restricted or suspended. But in the letter, he complains that this falls under beyond the control of the country because of U.S. sanctions, and is quite angry about the decision. Can you talk about it a little bit and tell us where this goes from here?
So the Secretary General, as he does on a regular basis, writes to the President of the General Assembly. He did so. The Secretary General wrote such a letter, and to update him under the countries that have lost their voting rights under Article 19 of the Charter. He did so on May 28th to say that Central African Republic, Comoros, the Islamic Republic of Iran, Sao Tome and Principe, and Somalia fell under Article 19. I'm not going to read the article for you, but it's in the Charter, which I'm sure you have on your desk. I will say this, that we have been in very intense discussions with the Islamic Republic of Iran on finding a way for them to pay their dues. It is not from lack of trying from either our side or from their side, but as you know, the country falls under a number of bilateral sanctions, which makes it a bit challenging. So those discussions are continuing in good faith on all sides. But there is a mechanical procedure over which the Secretary General has no control, that if dues have not been paid and there's been an arrear of a certain level, as it's stated in Article 19, it becomes an automatic procedure. I will let my colleague, Mr. Varma, explain that there are ways, and member states vote in the General Assembly, that certain countries, despite their arrears, are allowed to vote, but that is a decision by member states.
Do we know how much Iran owes?
What I can tell you is that in the letter, which is a public document, right? So the minimum, there is a minimum payment necessary to reduce the amount owed by member states on their contributions so that they remain below the gross amount assessed for the preceding of 2 full years, which is 2019 and 2020. So the minimum needed to be paid by the Central African Republic is $29,395, by Comoros $871,632,000, by the Islamic Republic of Iran $16,251,298, Sao Tome and Principe $829,888, and Somalia $1,443,640. All of that is in the document A/S-32/3. As a service to all of you, we'll send it out electronically so you all have it. Okay.
But is there a vote that in UN that could be scheduled for member state to decide that despite being behind in dues that their voting rights would be?
There is a procedure whereby member states can say, even though you didn't pay, you can have a vote. Okay, let's go to Mr. Tobias Burns. Toby.
Hi, thanks, Steph. I appreciate it. Just wondering if the UN has comment on the situation in Nicaragua where a political candidate has been detained or put under house arrest, reportedly.
Yes, we are. We're very much aware of the recent legal actions that were taken against Cristiana Chamorro, one of the opposition leaders, and that those actions may prevent her from participating in the coming elections. This comes on the heels of a period of tension between the government and the opposition, and these developments risk worsening the confidence in the upcoming elections. We've also taken note of the electoral reforms passed by the National Assembly of Nicaragua last month, and those concerns expressed by some national and international actors on this matter, including the High Commissioner for Human Rights. The Secretary General encourages broad-based agreement on measures towards credible, participatory, and inclusive elections in Nicaragua this coming November. Iftikhar.
Sorry, just a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Go
Sorry,
ahead. Are you concerned?
Hold on.
Sorry, Iftikhar, go ahead.
No, go, Iftikhar, hold on 2 seconds. Toby, go ahead.
okay.
Just is the UN concerned about not only the electoral process, but also the safety of this candidate?
It is incumbent on the government to ensure that to ensure her safety, as well as all political leaders. Iftikhar.
Can you hear me, Steph?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Steph. The Office of UN High Commissioner for Human Rights released a letter from 5 UN experts to the government of India expressing grave concern over the continuing repression in Indian-occupied Kashmir and cited in particular a case of a Kashmiri activist who was stripped naked and hung upside down in a prison. Any comments from you?
Look, we don't, obviously these independent experts are exactly that, they're independent. The Secretary General's position on Kashmir has remained unchanged. Mr. Avni.
Matthias Schmal, our favorite. So there's reports that he has been reprimanded by the brass in UNRWA. Also, I've seen footage of wide demonstrations inside Gaza against him. Is it safe for him to come back? And also, what's his status? Has he been reprimanded? And what's the story?
I'm not aware of him having been reprimanded. So, I mean, if you want to ask UNRWA, that's fine. I'm not aware. He is not in Gaza because his security could not be, and his security and safety could not be guaranteed.
Is that because of the demonstrations and the wide unease about his statement?
I mean, you would have to. I can't answer the motivation of people who are demonstrating, but it was clear to us that his safety and security could not be guaranteed, obviously, because of demonstrations and other issues.
You can read the signs, but they can't.
No, listen, we can all read the signs. What I'm telling you is that given what the events that have been going on and what has been said against him, that his safety and security could no longer be guaranteed. So he is not in Gaza. Okay, let's see if go ahead, Ali, and then I'll go back to the video.
I wonder whether you have any comment to the U.S. additional humanitarian aid to Syria that was announced today by the U.S. ambassador, additional $240 million. And on Lebanon, there was this report about the situation in the country is is one of the most severe since like 200 centuries. Does that?
No, I think you're
merit-
referring to the World Bank report,
Yes.
which meant the
Yeah,
worst
does
in
that
150
merit,
years. Yeah.
A comment from the Secretary
I
General?
mean, you know, we have nothing to add to what the World Bank has said. We have been very concerned about the situation in Lebanon for a very long time. We have been very vocal about it ourselves and through the international support group, which the UN is a member of. The lack of political progress, the lack of a government beyond a caretaker government, and the lack of reforms to answer the voices of the Lebanese people, which have been also very vocal.
What's happening and the description that this is something that doesn't happen in 2 or more centuries, does that require a special action from the Secretary General, from the United Nations, from what's
we have been, I think the international community represented through the international support group from Lebanon has been speaking with one voice, has been saying we are here to help Lebanon. But the political leaders in Lebanon also have a responsibility to come together, form a government, and answer the needs of their people. Syria, I haven't seen that particular report, but obviously, and I don't know through which mechanism this aid will be channeled. But we obviously welcome any additional funding for humanitarian operations. Our humanitarian operations across the board are basically underfunded. So any funds to help our underfunding would be welcome. Okay, Mr. Varma, it's your turn.